Hello and welcome to F.U.Tube, the home of constructive consumer criticism.
Come on, Apple, I expected better from you.
What a rip-off! F you, Clairol!
First up tonight is a complaint from Antje, who's unhappy that her hip replacement cost an arm and a leg. Hopefully that's a metaphor. If not, you should definitely sue your surgeon. Anyway, Antje's private hospital in Canberra sent her this estimate of expenses that said her hip replacement operation and 7 days in hospital was projected to cost $13,500. It also said $2,835 of that would be paid by Bupa, her private health fund. Antje paid the balance up front and then had the operation. But then something terrible happened. She recovered quickly and left hospital after only 4 days, not 7. And her reward for leaving hospital early was a bill for $1,215, because that Bupa rebate figure was actually based on a per-night rate fixed by health regulations.
Who are you? You look awful. I'm you, after you got your Bupa rebate.
Now, the background to how that $1,215 bill came about is complicated, but the result was ridiculous. Because she stayed in hospital for less than 7 days, Antje had to pay more.
Dad, what is it?
It's your mother. She made a full recovery.
Come on, let's go.
Worse still, if Antje had stayed in hospital for more than 7 days, her rebate would have gone up and she would have actually paid less. Now, when Antje raised this bizarre situation with the hospital, they said,
"This is just the way that private health fund contracts are formulated within the legislation." Washing hands. Oh, I get it.
"We don't think it's good enough to just say, sorry, that's the way it is. In Australia, when you go to a hospital, you become a patient with patient rights, but you're also a consumer with consumer rights. So all the guarantees in the consumer law that would cover you for, say, a 7-day hotel package
Welcome.
apply just the same to a 7-day hospital package.
But we have better drugs.
That also means that false or misleading representations about price aren't allowed. And even though the form that Antje signed had some words that gave the hospital anterior dressing when they did her hip replacement, we think it was misleading about the rebate. In Antje's situation, the way that rebate worked was so counterintuitive that it should have been made clear to her. So as well as fixing Antje's hip, we think the consumer law says that the hospital should fix up her hip pocket too. Consumer issues in the health sector are one of the ACCC's priorities this year. Dodgy advertising in health can divert people away from proper medical attention. Firms like Safe Breast Imaging and BreastCheck have been fined for claiming that thermographic cameras are as good as mammograms at detecting cancer. And the federal court recently found Homeopathy Plus was misleading about the effectiveness of homeopathic alternatives to the whooping cough vaccine. That company now faces a fine of up to $1.1 million.
But we believe a massively watered down fine would be even more effective.
But now to a far more serious matter: beer. And Emma, who noticed that 2 beers she was drinking were making the same claim. And she wasn't just seeing double. This Guardhouse Golden Ale is linked to John Boston, Australia's first brewer, 1796. But the Chancer Golden Ale says James Squire was a convict on the First Fleet and also Australia's first brewer. And despite rigorous taste testing, we can't tell which claim is accurate, and neither can the Prime Minister. So we asked each company to support their claim about Australia's first brewer. And can I just say that in 3 seasons of the checkout, we have never had such a speedy and thorough response from 2 companies. I thought beer was supposed to make you slower. Anyway, the makers of Guardhouse Golden Ale say,
John Boston brewed the first commercial beer in Australia in Sydney in 1796. It was made from Indian corn and Cape
all right, this isn't
gooseberries.
MasterChef. I don't need the bloody recipe. But James Squires says,
While there may be certain other brands who lay claim to this title, some of whom bear an uncanny resemblance to the James Squire brand, unfortunately for them, historical evidence proves that James Squire was in fact first.
they even referred us to a paper by an academic.
Australia's first brewer, the Royal Australian Historical Society, Volume 82, Part 2.
Yeah, well, page 18 of the Gastronomical History of
Oi.
Australia.
Back in your bottles. For what it's worth, John Boston is documented as brewing from at least 1796.
You see?
But there is substantial, if less specific, evidence that James Squire was brewing even earlier.
F.U. John Boston.
And of course, this whole first brewer shtick is just marketing froth, because James Squire was actually invented way back in
1998, when Lion Nathan rebranded its Australian craft brewing arm and is now owned by the Japanese multinational Kirin.
Whereas the glorious history of John Boston goes all the way back to
2009, when the brand was launched by the Wine Society, and then in 2013 was sold to Pinnacle Drinks, which is owned by Woolworths.
So the relevance of these historical arguments is at best mid-strength, and they've all been artfully crafted in the name of a bitter corporate rivalry. I'll drink to that. Good night.